What is going on, Movie Meals? Movie Meals. Thank you, Movie Meal patrons, Kimberly and Karen. Go get some merch. I'll link down in the description. We're here for Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. This will be a spoiler review, all spoilers galore. If you've seen the movie, make sure to comment, like, subscribe on this video. Go check out all the great stuff we've got going on here. TikTok, Letterbox, merch, all that good stuff. But we're going to get into this spoiler discussion here of the Multiverse of Madness. So we'll just start. Kyle, what were your thoughts of the movie?
I gotta say, in terms of seeing this new Marvel movie visually, seeing its directing style, it's probably one of the more newer Marvel movies that I really was having a great time through and through because of it. And that's of course because of Sam Raimi, who we know like his visual style is very unique, is very campy at times, but it also leans into the perfect amount of like horror and that genre. And he just nails it again in this movie. Like it just works perfectly for Doctor Strange, the character, and he was able to make these visuals even more fun than the last Doctor Strange movie was, and he was able to lean into his own style so well, despite being in the constructs of the MCU machine as we know it to be. Like it's one of the more interesting movies visually, I think, that Marvel has done in a while. I know that there still has been other good Marvel movies that have done well directing wise, but this one for me, I really just was able to get into it more than some of the other Marvel movies we've had in recent times because of his visuals. And for that, like I was really appreciative. And I also think it'll be good for younger MCU fans who maybe didn't grow up with like the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies and they don't quite understand why that style works so well for the Spider-Man movies. But I think if they see it within this context of the MCU, I think they'll be able to understand it and get more of appreciation of it, which I think is pretty cool to have. So on top of that too, there was just very good acting, very good visuals. And it, like I said, because of that, it was one of the more enjoyable outings in the MCU that I've had. So what about you?
Yeah, I had a blast. I've seen the movie twice now. And I had a great time at this movie. The first time when I left, I was like, man, I didn't love the pacing as much. I don't know if I love some of what's going on. If at times maybe it might feel like two different movies. And then I'm sitting at home and I'm like, I started thinking about Spider-Man 1, 2, and 3 or Ash versus Evil Dead. And I'm starting to think about Sam Raimi. And I'm like, I'm literally not even comparing them. I'm just sitting there thinking about those movies, thinking about Sam Raimi on Friday going, man, I love this campy thing. I love this campy thing. And then I go see it again with Kyle in an incredible theater. Great when you get to go to a great theater when we live in small town America. And I I was sitting there and I guess just in the forefront of my mind, I've been thinking about all the movies he made in the early 2000s and how they're 2000s movies. They're a bit campy. The dialogue's a bit cheesy at times. And when I was sitting watching this movie, I appreciated it so much more. I was like, wow. I mean, I liked the horror in my first viewing, but I just ended up having a better time at the theater overall. I loved the horror aspect they bring to this. Um, I loved what Sam Raimi brought. I do think once I started viewing it more as the Sam Raimi early 2000s version of this movie, I started to appreciate it a lot more. I get why some people don't. I think the magic in this was some of the best we've seen. We got to really dive into him being magical. I mean, he's summoning demon dogs, he's summoning snakes, he's very horror. The music note battle I really loved. I thought was awesome. I think that was so unique. And it's like, okay, when you're a magician and you're magical, what do you use? You can use anything as a weapon. And in that situation, that's what he used. And I thought it made for some really good moments. I thought all the performances are great. I love that the villain is Wanda. I love that the marketing made us think it was going to be this evil version of Doctor Strange, when in reality it's Wanda from start to finish. I think it was great. I liked all the characters. Wong is the most underappreciated character in the entire MCU. He's funny.
Yeah.
He's a complete and total badass. He's awesome. I love Wong. I love him whenever he pops up, whether it's his banter with Doctor Strange and in these movies, whether it's in Infinity War, whether it's in Shang-Chi. I love Wong. He is slowly becoming one of my favorite characters without meaning to. But yeah, what else you got here? What are you thinking here? What'd you not like? No magic,
Uh,
huh?
no magic, but it was a movie with magic. How could it not?
What?
Uh, I do think that there was very good acting in this movie, particularly with Elizabeth Olsen as Scarlet Witch. Like you can just tell that she
Mm-hmm.
just really enjoys playing this character and is willing to go all the way with it. And despite, some of the campy things that we were talking about with Sam Raimi's directing style, he is also able to lean into emotion within his movies
Mm-hmm.
very well too. That being said, though, I think this movie kind of does have an issue with pacing, but I'm not meaning this as it's too long of a movie. In fact, I didn't really think it was. I thought it was perfectly fine where it was at, but it is a blockbuster type movie to where there is so much happening and so much fast movement going on that you just have to boom, 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 go to the next thing, go to the next thing, just at that fast pace where the movie just has to, like, that's just the way that it's structured and has to do it, especially with so much going on. And I do think it suffers from the emotional weight of Doctor Strange's character and Scarlet Witch's character. I also like that Scarlet Witch was the villain. I thought it was kind of a nice change of pace, as compared to only having some new villains show up. Like, I like that there was kind of an emotional attachment to Scarlet Witch, but I do think it kind of comes into play on if you've seen WandaVision or not. And sometimes within the MCU, like, we're able to kind of go into these movies blind without knowing all of the connective tissue. I think this movie does kind of suffer from that. Like, if you haven't seen the show, then that's on you. So I don't know if someone coming into this movie blind is really going to get the full scope of Wanda's character, or really, they'll probably understand the context, but they won't have the emotional impact by it as much if they had seen the show, I think. So I kind of do wonder if that would suffer a bit. And as going back to that fast pace, boom, 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 we have to go to the next thing, go to the next thing, situation that this movie brings itself upon, it does kind of suffer from Doctor Strange's character, despite being the main character, kind of having a B subplot to him as well, in that there was an emotional through line that he was kind of learning to having to accept about himself. And you could tell that the movie was trying to have that be at the forefront, but I just didn't feel like it was. Like, it always just kind of was reminding me that, oh, don't forget, he's learning his lesson. He's learning something about acceptance and having to move on and learning about, and it just didn't quite work for me. I think it almost did, but it just always felt like it was on the back burner of so many other things going on within this movie. Do you feel differently though?
Um, on which part? You said a lot. You said a
I
lot.
know.
Which part? Which part do I feel differently about? If
I don't know, all of it, none of it. The through lines with Doctor Strange, or do people need to see WandaVision, or do you think going in blind would be fine? You can do either one of
I
those.
think you can go into this movie blind. I think they give you an exposition dump where he says you took over a town, and then he explains to his soldiers she took over a whole town with her mind. She manifested her children, and now she's obsessed. They say it in the movie. I mean, unless you sit there and you go, when did that happen? I didn't know that happened. And you sit for the next 45 minutes and you're like, when did it happen? When did it happen? Then you need to calm down. That's on you. I don't think you need to have seen WandaVision, but it helps. To me, it reminds me very similar of like reading a book like Catalyst for Rogue One. You don't need to read it, but it does give a lot of fleshing out of some of the characters, backstory that ends up really making the movie more impactful. So I think you can go either way. Do you want to be more impacted, or are you just here to watch some crazy horror moments in an MCU movie? There's a generic fan out there who just wants to go see these movies and that's it. They don't need to watch these TV shows to have it fleshed out. So I think you can go either way. I do agree that the pacing does still struggle a bit. I do appreciate it more as it keeps going. There's a couple of things I want to touch on here, though, including a larger conversation, which always will be related to my true passion in life, Star Wars, but we'll get there. One, I know we talked about a little bit the other day privately, just about what the state of the MCU with Spider-Man is, because I know Kyle and I a couple days ago were talking about Avengers and how we wanted the new team, and I remember I mentioned Spider-Man, and you were like, well, I do, nobody knows who Spider-Man is, and I like that this movie confirmed that they do know who Spider-Man is, but they don't know that he's Peter Parker anymore. He says we had this incident with the multiverse with Spider-Man, but that's all they know. And I think that's an interesting point, that everybody in the MCU knows who Spider-Man is, but now their memories are altered where they just think they fought with Spider-Man. They did not fit or fight with Peter Parker, just Spider-Man. And I really appreciated that they threw a line in there, because I think it was a question that needed to be addressed. They threw one little line. It's good. We know the status, and that's all we need to do for theories. Another thing I find interesting. So I don't know if you remember this conversation, but the news broke a year or so ago that Michael Waldron, who wrote this and wrote Loki, and was a main executive producer and writer on Rick and Morty, was going to be writing a Star Wars movie with Kevin Feige. He was going to do the produced Star Wars movie with Kevin. And I remember one of the things you and I said a lot was, man, when Loki came out, we were like, we both really liked Loki. We thought the writing was there. We thought everything was there. It was one of the better shows they've done. I watch Rick and Morty. I like it. But now I'm curious. We got out of the movie and some of our friends were talking about how lazy the writing was in this movie, how bad it was, how hokey or things like that. And I forgot he had done that. We had the conversation. We knew Michael Waldron was going to be writing this film. And for some reason, I just left that theater yesterday going, oh, it must have been Sam Raimi that wrote this movie. It's his writing style, blah, blah, blah. But it was Michael Waldron. So I'm curious where you stand on the writing of this movie and what you think now, because we had talked about maybe what was going to happen with him as a writer for Star Wars, thinking we were pretty optimistic. Have you changed your viewpoint on that as well? I'm curious your thoughts.
I mean, I don't have concern with him writing a Star Wars movie after seeing Doctor Strange 2, because the writing, at least for me, it was good. Like it was good for a blockbuster type movie. My main issues were just the pacing of the film, and because there's just a lot to have in this movie, and it just left to having the emotional arcs and the more character driven aspects of the movie to kind of be pushed to the side and become more of reminders in a checkbox format rather than being very much incorporated to the story as much as I wish it would have. But that doesn't make me worry about whatever this next Star Wars movie is, because I could see within this movie that there is something there. There is a good story to be had there at a character level. And I know that he does have the capabilities of doing creative writing between the likes of Rick and Morty and Loki. So I don't know, maybe in a longer format, like he just has better, not luck, but maybe he's just better for the longer formats than compared to a movie, which is fair. I think that would be the same for a lot of writers, to be able to have that longer format than a 2 hour long movie. But I still think he still is good. I mean, Kevin Feige clearly likes him for a reason, and whether this movie is still happening or not, I have no idea. Like, I'm not pumping the brakes on it. I wouldn't be concerned. I say go for it still.
Yeah, for me, I think the writing does a good job. I think one of the things that I think he strikes me as a writer is I think he works with who he knows is going to be in as a director. I mean, there's probably a lot of lines in this movie that were probably very improvised by Benedict or the other actors, or Sam Raimi was like, throw this in, or, Bruce Campbell making his jokes, things like that. So I'm still pretty optimistic. I felt the writing was pretty solid. I think the biggest issue with this character, and I was talking about this on my ride home yesterday after we saw the movie, that, when the first Doctor Strange came out, he got very compared to Tony Stark, very compared. And I think people kind of forget about that. It was Tony in his first movie, in that first Iron Man, he's kind of a D-bag, and he learns in the first movie to not be a D-bag, and he changes in that first movie, and he then just becomes sarcastically funny. And Doctor Strange in his first movie, I don't think ever finishes that arc. He does learn to be a hero and that he needs to do good, but he doesn't, I think, change who he is as a person, where Tony in that first movie fundamentally changes who he is as a person. And then it makes for funny banter when you get to the Infinity War Endgame, because because now it's Tony speaking to, I think, a version of who he used to be. And honestly, in this movie, I felt actually really in Spider-Man more than anything, and the events of Spider-Man and maybe a tad bit of Endgame of what happened. I think you start to see him change a little bit from just a straight D-bag to learning how to open up and be kind. And I appreciate this movie so much more because I think we did get to see that development in him. But it does take a while. And I think that's why the Doctor Strange movies stay a bit stale in me feeling like the characters are not in as much danger, because it's not one of my favorite heroes in the MCU. It's a character that in the first movie I didn't really like. I don't like him as much outside of his humor in the Infinity War and everything like that. I appreciated him more in Spider-Man. He's trying to help Spider-Man until he becomes a little too, Spider-Man becomes too outside crazy, and then he's like, you got to calm down, we got to send these people back, and he's like, no, and then I appreciate in this movie that he really does open up. We learn a little bit more of his backstory about his sister, about I love the finale in this movie where he is talking to, what's Rachel McAdams' character's name, Christine, with Christine. And this is a Christine from another universe that doesn't know this Doctor Strange, knows him from being similar and things like that. And had they kissed, I would have been very down on the ending. But I think her just putting her hand on his cheek and him saying, I have loved you in every universe. I've seen that through this journey I've been on, and I truly love you. And I am just afraid. It's honestly maybe my favorite part of the whole movie, of him just saying how afraid he truly is to open up and let go, because it's something that we see other similar type characters like Tony Stark go through earlier. And we finally got a chance to see this after so many years of seeing this character of him really open up. And it makes me more excited for a sequel with him, because now I'm a little bit more invested. Now, am I putting Doctor Strange as my top 5 characters? No, but I mean, when Wong is right there, how? But I do appreciate him more, and I'm more interested in a movie with him because he has been fleshed out a little bit more. I think he's learned a little bit, and I'm curious what the ending will be with this third eye he now has. But any thoughts there? I've got one other thing I want to touch on, but I'm curious if you have any thoughts on any of the things I was saying.
No, I think you made good points. I liked hearing what you had to say about it. I thought it was very interesting. But the third eye thing, that bugged me a little, only because it was like it was such a whoa, what is going on way to end the movie for me to be like, ooh, I kind of do want to know what's going to happen next. And then he seems fine in that first after credits scene, like, oh, me and my buddy, the third eye, are going to hop with Charlize Theron and go to the moon or wherever the heck they're going to. And I'm like,
they really do. They make it. They're like, oh my gosh, he's going to be a bad guy. He's going to go crazy. It's Doctor Strange is going to be madness this time. It's not going to be Wanda. And then the after credit scene, it's like, oh no, he just learned to control it already. But again, we don't know what's actually going to happen. Now, can you remind me? I think the What If series is the worst thing Marvel has done. I ended up not enjoying it. I didn't finish it.
Yes.
And I was very hyped on it, which shocks me. But did you watch the whole thing, correct? Didn't you watch the whole thing?
No, I stopped after episode 6 or 7.
But I stopped after the Doctor Strange episode, and you saw that episode too, correct?
Yes.
I don't remember anything
easily
in that episode outside of him going crazy. I truly don't remember. So in What If he gets that third eye, correct?
I believe so. Yeah.
And then that's the version we saw here at the end in the movie where that he fought, and he must have caused an incursion of universes. This What If version of him, right? That's got to be what happened.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say yes, but I was a little confused by that too, because I thought I remembered him not doing anything at the end of the episode. I thought he had finally accepted his fate and was like hanging out with the Watcher or something.
Oh,
and then all of a sudden,
right. So maybe it wasn't related to him at all.
But I will say, I think he does come back from what I've heard in like the finale of What If, and clearly we haven't seen the finale of What If. So clearly we missed out on some things that,
I actually think I did
Just going
watch the
back to that.
finale of What If, or like I watched half of it or something. I don't know why, but not good by Marvel in my opinion. Okay, here's the other thing I want to talk about, and then we can wrap this up.
Okay.
So for me, I muted everything on Twitter. I was avoiding everything. And again, this is spoilers. I get on Twitter and I see John Krasinski is trending.
Mm-hmm.
And in my mind, and I'm being completely honest, I know we have talked about him being a fan casting. I know that was huge for WandaVision. I just forgot that was ever in the cards. And never in my wildest dreams did I think that that was going to happen for this movie. And I clicked on John Krasinski. I'd muted everything else I could think of for Doctor Strange. And I like Hollywood. I click on him going, is him and Emily okay? Are the kids doing all right? Is this about A Quiet Place 3? What's happening? And there's no spoiler. And this is on Tuesday before the movie comes out. This is from the premiere. There's no spoiler warning. There's no nothing. The very first tweet is a picture of the four of them in this movie when they all jump down to confront Wanda. I didn't see Captain Carter. I didn't see Black Bolt, not that I cared. And I didn't see Captain Marvel. And I just saw John Krasinski. I instantly go away and I got really angry. And maybe I don't know why, I know you were a little bit more vocal in your hate for Spider-Man and the things that were spoiled and leaked. And I agree to an extent. It just ended up not bothering me for the movie as much. I think I had just, for 2 years of hearing it, I just had accepted it. But I agree. I think Marvel fandom has become the worst. I think they're worse than the Star Wars fandom, outside of maybe the deep weeb fandom or the deep like gamer fandom. I think they are some of the worst. I think they're worse than Star Wars fans. I don't like you and I for like Amazing Spider-Man 2. We were taking screenshots, we're zooming in, we're trying to, but it never was leaks. It was never, this is actually going to happen in the movie and you have to find out about it right now. And it's going to be everywhere and everybody's going to clickbait it and you're going to be tricked. I clicked on John Krasinski truly thinking that there was something like, I hope he's okay. Is this news about him as an actor? I remember clicking on it, thinking that, never thinking that that would be it. Now people are posting it everywhere. I saw he was trending again yesterday, but at least this time people are going spoilers for Multiverse of Madness. But again, they're putting his name, they're linking it to him. No, they're just not allowing the satisfaction of the reveals in the movie anymore. And this movie bothered me more than Spider-Man because some things in Spider-Man didn't get out. Things with Star Wars didn't get out, like in Mandalorian, spoilers for that, with Luke coming back, like that didn't get out. And it felt so amazing to see that for the first time. And the John Krasinski thing was underwhelming to me a little bit because I knew it was coming. And maybe if I had that leak 2 years in advance, like with Andrew and Toby, maybe I wouldn't feel this way. But I have come to the conclusion that it's turned into a culture of, we have to find leaks and we have to talk about them and we have to do clickbait and we have to force everybody to hear them. And that you either have to go completely dark off social media, break your phone and throw it in the ocean if you want to avoid it. And it bothered me a little bit. And I've seen the movie twice. I think the little moment with John Krasinski is fun. I think the fan service is fun. I saw tons of people saying it was confirmed John Krasinski was coming back in our version at Earth 616 universe, that he was officially confirmed by Deadline. I saw so many people saying Deadline exclusive, blah, blah, blah. And then I went to Deadline and saw nothing. So that's my problem. Now Deadline's not reporting it. And now people are saying, oh, you have to believe me now because Deadline confirmed it. And they didn't go fact check Deadline because it has not been confirmed. I'll look it up right now and see if that has changed since yesterday. But what do you got thoughts on what I'm saying here? My little rant?
No, I thoroughly agree. I don't know. All of a sudden, I'm realizing that fandom has become a bunch of scoopers and hackers who, rather than enjoy reveals in the moment, decide that these movies are only supposed to be cool reveals and not storytelling. And they wanted the reveals to They want to be right about what reveals are going to happen.
They want to be right. That is the best thing of what I mean, you said a lot of great things there, but that line I think is what's true. They have to be right on their take. And that's what I hate.
And then what happens when you're right? Then you're right. Okay, cool. Then you ruined it for everyone else. Like, what? Just because you want to know doesn't mean everyone else wants to know. And then why are you digging around to begin with? Like, somebody is trying to make a movie that's going to have a bunch of cool surprises for everyone in a big theater to enjoy, and you just want to ruin that for people just because you want to be right within your fandom? Like, I don't get that. That's not fandom. Not to me, anyway. Fandom is coming up with theories and speculations and talking about, all of these cool things that could happen. But then at the end of the day, you go in and enjoy with everyone else, whatever the outcome would be. Or maybe you don't enjoy it. That's a bummer, but that's life.
These are the same fans, though, that if they have not gotten a chance to watch, a show like Breaking Bad that ended years and years ago, and you spoil something, they throw a big hissy fit. How dare you spoil something that came out years ago? I just looked again. Nothing from any legitimate sources of John Krasinski returning. It was a fun casting that I think would have hit harder had I seen it fresh in the movie. Some of those headlines from companies were like John Krasinski's cameo and Doctor Strange 2. The movie's been out for 4 days. Like, give people an opportunity to go see it. And what people are going to hear from us, Kyle, the people who aren't actually listening to what we're saying are going to hear, well, you don't like that we're having theories and we're having fun and talking about it. Blah, 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 blah. That's not what we're saying at all. Some of the best things ever. Like, I remember sitting in line when our theater, when episode 7 and 8 of Star Wars came out, or Infinity War, or I think Endgame had done this by then, but we couldn't pick our seats. You could get your tickets in advance, but you still had to get there early, wait in line in front of the theater to go and get the best seats in the house. And we would get there early. We would sit and we'd bring lawn chairs and we'd chat. And there were all these people that would take the day off of work and they skipped to sit there for 10 hours and chat. And I remember talking so many theories with them, and it was awesome. We sat there and they were like, well, I read this comic, or I did this. And, I heard that this thing might be true, or I just came up with this might happen. But nobody said, hey, look at this leak from Twitter. And it's going to happen because it's leaked. And then they digitally put it next to this and they changed the background. So we know for sure it's going to happen. And there was none of that. And some of the theories we talked about in those lines were right. Some of them were wrong, and it was so much more fun to talk about. And that's what I miss of the fandom, because I think we lost that. We don't have that. And it's made me stale to want to have those conversations. Kyle and I are with a bunch of our friends who love movies, are in a movie club. We watch a movie, we all get a chance to pick one. And that's the best outlet I can have, because we actually get to sit and talk. It's not even necessarily about biased. It's just about making sure that you get to not have these spoilers and not have these things, because we've watched so many movies that are new to us that have been so fun to do. And I miss that. But I got nothing else to say outside of the horror scene where she obliterates that Illuminati crew is awesome. And I loved the horror vibes of this movie, and I'm here for it.
It was so satisfying for me. Not because of the cameos. I mean, the cameos were cool. I mean, seeing a fan casting actually come to life, like John Krasinski as Mr. Fantastic, it was cool. Seeing Professor X, played by Patrick Stewart, come back again, it was cool. A bit on the nose that it was the '90s theme song, but whatever.
It's fun. I think it's
even
fun.
The actor from the TV show who played Black Bolt got to come back. But although he did get his brain blown out, which that was funny, but at least he got to come back and do something about it. Got to redeem himself a little bit. But what was satisfying was just, thinking about what we were just talking about, complaining about all these hacks, these leaks, these stupid reveals before the movie comes out. And for them to be like, I'm right. It felt like Feige and Sam Raimi were like, oh, yeah, you guys are right. But watch what we're going to do to them.
Yeah,
and
they're not coming back.
And just to see them get wiped out was just the most satisfying, just because I'm salty to, this stupid part of fandom. But it also, at least it was something different, because I was just watching this Illuminati being like, boy, they're kind of a bunch of pricks being like in this mighty tower, thinking that they're better than everyone because they know about the multiverse and the rules and this and that. But to see them get wiped out, I don't know. It was a nice change of pace. It wasn't, keeping a cameo and then having to do something with the cameo. It was just, it flipped the switch, and
I
I'm
agree.
sure there's a lot of fans that may have liked it because it's Sam Raimi, or may not have liked it because they were right but also wrong. So I don't know. I got my cake and ate it too, so I'm comfortable
I'm
with it.
with you. I love the horror vibe he brought. I have seen a lot of people be like, "Look, Marvel for the first time ever has done something different." First of all, have you watched Marvel? I mean, Ant-Man's a heist movie. It's a completely, I mean, yes, does it follow the hero journey? Sure, but it's a heist movie. Guardians is very different. We've gotten different in the MCU, and I appreciate that now our different is horror. And they went horror. I mean, they did some insanely violent stuff in this, getting his head blown off. John Krasinski gets shredded. Captain Carter gets cut in half with her own shield. I really liked and appreciated that Sam Raimi was able to do that. It makes me very curious what Scott Derrickson was going to do for his version before they had creative differences, because I know he wanted to go
Yeah,
even like very horror, and this I thought was pretty horror. So I'm
yeah.
very curious what his take on this horror script might have been. But I had fun with this movie. I think is it a top 10 Marvel movie? Probably not. But I think it's going to be in that mid tier. I enjoyed it. I am glad I saw it twice. And I think when it comes on, I will enjoy seeing it again. Any final thing for you, Kyle, real quick?
The main crux of why I like this movie is because of Sam Raimi. He was
I
still
agree.
able to be creative with his directing style despite being within the confinements of, the MCU and how MCU movies look. And I was happy to see another Doctor Strange movie again. I wish that I got a little bit more out of the character emotionally, but I could tell they were trying to do something with it, and I'm just happy to see Sam Raimi, doing this stuff again. So
I
I hope he
agree.
finds something else to do next.
Maybe they bring him back for 3. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe.
Um, Guys, what do you think of the movie? Comment below. Let us know. Comment on all these different takes and thoughts we had. What do you think of the movie? Remember to like, subscribe, share. Thank you, Movie patrons. And as always, thank you for watching, Mom.
See you guys.